Hi, my name's Charlie King. I'm with Heroic Fatherhood, and welcome to your Mentor's Moment. In this series, we answer questions from real dads who are asking for advice, insight, or a new perspective on something they're facing in their lives as a dad and an entrepreneur. In today's question, a dad asks, do I need to start to maintain some distance from my 8-year-old daughter so that when she reaches adulthood and moves on, the absence of our closeness and affection doesn't become problematic for either of us? Great question. Great question. So there's this period, this magical period, sort of that 8 to 10, 8 to 11, 7 to 9, somewhere in that region, where girls become all about dad. Become all about dad. This is both awesome for dads, and it's often frustrating for moms as well, because the moms really get that the girls are all about dad. It doesn't matter how much your wife puts in, or your spouse puts in, or your partner puts in. It's all about dad. We're just all about dad all the time. Where's dad? What's he doing? How do we get more time with dad? And it is this sweet and delicious period as your kids grow up, where your daughter is, how do I get more time with dad? He's just the best thing in the world. I want to hang on him. I want to be held by him. I want to hug him. I want to hold his hand. I want to do things with him. I just want to be all about dad. And it is this great moment in child development for dads where we get this sense of closeness, and it's like an adoration. Like we are on a pedestal. We can do no wrong almost no matter what we do, whether we come home we come home late, doesn't matter. Whether we leave early, doesn't matter. But anytime we walk in the door, it's like, Dad's home, and everything's really great. So there is that super sweet time. And I totally get that if you're experiencing that, they're like, wait, this is my daughter, and like, is this the way it's gonna be? Isn't this a little weird? Like, how's that gonna go when she's in high school and everything else? No worries. There's no worries about this, because the reality is that this too shall shift. This too shall change. Kids go through this developmental stage where during this period, they're all about you. But I want you to remember that there are going to be those times where they lean deeply into being in relationship with you, but as part of the same normal developmental state, when they get a little bit older, they're going to be pushing away from you and leaning in somewhere else. Whether they're leaning into being with their friends, which means they're leaning away from being with their family, or there's going to be some sort of a love interest that they lean into and hence leaning back from their friends and still leaning back, and it'll become all about something else. So generally, this is no big concern, because this is a totally natural developmental thing. And what you can expect is that it's just gonna be like waves on an ocean. You're just gonna go up and down, and it's gonna be like this. It is the process of raising girls. And there are gonna be even not even periods of years, but even periods of a day where it's like, oh, I'm so connected to dad, to later in the day where you're just getting stony silence, or I can't believe you're like that. It is part of raising girls. And it is part of the magical journey that we're on. So not to be too worried about it, what I'm a little more concerned about in your question, and something we need to be aware of, is how we interact with the adoration. There's nothing wrong with loving the adoration. Like, who doesn't love to be put up on a pedestal? Who doesn't love to be just loved for who you are? I just love you for everything you do and everything you are. And oh my gosh, did you just say that? That's like the best thing I've ever heard. There is nothing wrong with loving that. As long as we understand that it's the thing that's happening for right now, and that we don't hang our self-worth on the adoration of our kids. That is a slippery slope. When you hang your self-worth on the adoration of your kids, you run the risk of starting to change your behavior to continue keeping that adoration. What do I need to give them? What do I need to be flexible on where I haven't been being flexible before? And then you start hanging your self-worth on making your kids happy so that they continue to adore you. It is a slippery slope, and you will never win, because your kids naturally have to push away from you. And there are many parents that I've run into who've given their kids everything they think they want, only to find that their kids are resentful, and they don't know what's going on, and the parents are confused, and the kids are upset. And the reality is that they're just going through a developmental stage, and we need to decide where our boundaries are for our kids, set them in place, and understand that our kids are either going to like it or they're not going to like it, but it's not really in relationship to how we're going to parent them. Like, this is the boundaries we've set. This is the decisions we've made. I get that you may like them some days or you may not like them other days, but it's kind of the best that we know how to do. This is the best way for us to raise you. This lines up with our values and what we believe is best for you and best for the family. And understand that they're not always going to be happy with that. So making sure, like, nothing wrong with really loving this period in your daughter's life, as long as we're careful that we're getting our bucket filled. Now, what do I mean by getting your bucket filled? Is our self-worth bucket is a thing. It's a bucket, and it needs to be filled however we fill it. If you fill it with going out on guys' night, if you fill it by going to the gym, if you fill it by going to the theater or spending time in the library or going outdoors or hanging out with, people who, constantly reinforce how much you're an awesome human being, you need to get your bucket filled. Absolutely, positively. If your bucket is not getting filled and it is currently being filled by the adoration of your 8-year-old daughter, that is a warning bell. Absolutely a warning bell that you need to fill your bucket elsewhere. Your bucket really needs to get filled on a regular basis from another place. This seems counterintuitive for a lot of dads, but here's the deal. If you can't fill your bucket, so you have that inherent sense of self-worth where you're hanging with people who are big fans of who you are, that's a recipe for disaster in your relationship, not only with your daughter, but also with your spouse. Because we'll start doing things hoping for their consistent approval, even in the expense of doing things that don't serve us or aren't what we actually believe. We end up doing things that don't serve us or actually aren't what we believe or in the best interest of us or what we believe is right for the family. It is critical that you find a third space in your life to fill your bucket. A third space that is not your relationship with your kids. A third space that is not your relationship with your spouse. Your spouse is not going to approve or like everything you do. If any of you have been married for more than about 30 seconds, you know this. So having that fellowship with other men, having that fellowship with a team, having that fellowship outside of those two relationships where you can get your bucket filled, where you can come home knowing that you're super happy and you're super proud of who you are and you're making good decisions in life, is going to serve you so much more when conflict comes at home, when conflict comes with your daughter pushing away saying, yeah, it was all about dad, but now it's all about my friends. And that way you'll have a buffer to sit with and be like, yeah, I got it, that's where she was. Or when we make those unpopular decisions at home with our spouse, and our biggest fan is not currently our spouse or our partner. Well, if our bucket's filled and we're happy with who we are and the decisions we make, not every decision we're going to make is going to make our spouse happy. So that's what I'm leaving you with today. Thank you for the great question, and keep them coming. So if you're watching this video, I have a question for you. How would you have addressed this dad's question? Do you have any questions of your own? If so, put them in the comments below. And remember, if you like this video, check out other questions dads have asked. And lastly, remember, we become better men by spending time with good men. My name's Charlie King. I'm with Heroic Fatherhood, and this has been your Mentor's Moment.